These graves have stood the test of time for generations, marked not just by names, but by seashells, and every one of them tells a story. You hear that? That's the echoes of freedom. I'm Smith McNeill. We're back again with Echoes of Freedom. I'm going to try to speak loud enough you can hear me. I left the mic kit out in the truck, and it's about half a mile from where I'm standing right here in the middle of the woods in Nags Head, North Carolina. You wonder what in the world are you doing in the woods? And also, I apologize about the background noise. It's not going to be as crisp. I'm going to do what I can and post edits to get as much vocals out as I can. But like I said, I'm going to talk loud enough, hopefully loud enough you can hear me. Just turn my teacher voice on. I'll try to stay facing the camera as I talk. But you wonder, why are you in what looks like a cemetery in the middle of the woods? And we have stepped back into history today to the site of the Norris Baum Cemetery. And there's all kinds of history here. We're going to be talking about David Baum. His headstone is just to my right, your left on the screen. We'll walk over there here in a moment just to see what's up over there. Behind me is Penelope Baum. This is her headstone. Her footstone is right here at my feet. And Jesse Baum. These are the two head people of the cemetery that kind of established here. But I'm going to talk more on David Baum here in a moment. Enough rambling. Let me pull out my notes and get started here. So we're in a place that most visitors drive right past. In fact, most people don't know it's here. I didn't know it was here until I was doing some research on the area, trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to film while I was on this trip. And I was looking for it, found the trail, walked through the woods, and even walked right past it. I had to pull up on my map the exact coordinates and walk back and backtrack. And I was able to just catch it off of the, able to just catch it right off the side of the road, just kind of through the headstone here of Penelope, and realized that's it. That's where I need to go. One second. Let's get that out. But there's no massive monument, no crowds, just weathered stones, live oaks, and the sound of the wind of the Atlantic. Feels good, such a piece of history. This stone has been here since the early 1900s. In fact, 1907, we got a stone over here for their child. He was only alive, I looked at the headstone, only alive for 6 days before he passed away. And his stone is from 1886, so we are stepping back into time. However, I say all that to say that this small burial ground tells the story of the Outer Banks in a way very few places can. Because this isn't just a cemetery, it's a record of the people who lived, worked, fought the sea, and built communities on one of the most unforgiving coastlines here in America. So, unlike famous cemeteries, I'm going to try to come closer so I'm a little bit louder. Unlike most famous cemeteries that we often visit, this one wasn't created for soldiers or a single historic event. This is a family and community cemetery. That's what makes this so powerful. Echoes of Freedom is about finding the things that built America and listen to the stories that bring us our American freedom today. And that's why we're here. Big names here, Baum, Norris, and others belong to some of the earliest permanent families of Nags Head. These were fishermen, surfmen, boat builders, farmers, lifesavers, and pilots who guided ships through dangerous waters at the lighthouse. This cemetery is the human side of the Outer Banks history. So living here in the 18th and 19th centuries was not easy. There were hurricanes, isolation, shipwrecks, disease, limited medical care, and long periods cut off from the mainland because this is before bridges were built back to the mainland North Carolina. So your only way across the sounds were by boat. The Pamlico, the Albemarle, all the sounds here in North Carolina, you were limited to getting there by boat. And if the waters were not safe enough to travel, you were stuck here on the Outer Banks. Families survived by working the water, fishing, guiding ships, and later serving in U.S. life-saving service. And we're going to talk about one of the life-saving stations in a future episode. We're actually headed down to film at the Oregon Inlet, life-saving station here later today. So that will be out in I'm not sure if it's going to come out before or after this video, but that's in another episode of Echoes of Freedom. Check it out. So when you walk through a place like this, you're not just seeing headstones, you're seeing people who made it possible for the Outer Banks to exist as a community at all. The Baum and Norris families were among the foundational families of the Nags Head area. They helped establish early settlements, economic life, maritime traditions, and community identity. Their descendants still live in the region today, so this isn't just a historic site, it's a living family story. Places like this matter because they tell a different kind of history. Not the history of famous leaders, not the history of major battles, but the history of the ordinary people whose daily lives shaped the region. This is where generations were laid to rest, family lines were preserved, and the identity of the Outer Banks is rooted. And that's why we're here in the middle of the woods in Nags Head, North Carolina. I mean, why else would we come out here except to listen to the echoes of freedom? So what do we learn here? When we visit famous sites, we learn about events. When we visit cemeteries like this, we learn about people. We learn how long they lived, how families stayed together, how often children were lost, and how deeply connected communities were. It's history at its most personal level. So I want to talk about David Baum, and we're going to walk over here to his headstone. So bear with me as we walk over. It's just a short walk as we go right through here. I apologize for the background noise. But this here is David Baum, and he was born in March of 1945. See if I can zoom in on his headstone. So David Baum is born in March of 1945. He died in 1923. David Baum is going to be a slave during the time of the Civil War. Hopefully that doesn't look too weird. He's a slave during the time of the Civil War, and after he earns his freedom, he stays here to stay and work and help the family working around the Outer Banks and Nags Head Islands here at Kitty Hawk. And it just goes to show how much respect, because typically, yes, he's a little bit off, and that's typically how the white people would bury the slaves that stayed with them. They would bury, if a slave was close enough with the family and had the privilege or the respect of being buried with the family, they wouldn't be buried right with, they'd be buried a little bit off, and so that's why his grave is pushed off the side, because we've got, I don't know if you can see it, we've got Jesse Baum, the baby, we've got Penelope here, we've got Jesse, right behind Jesse is Norris. I think that says Norris. Yeah, we've got Norris, and there's two more over here in the woods I can't quite get to for all the overgrown shrub. And these would have been the white people and the family that's here all buried together. And of course, David, being the slave, he's going to be pushed off to the side. But he was well respected by the family enough that they buried him here with them. And so he is laid to rest right here with the family. And that just goes to show that as bad as slavery was, and don't get me wrong, slavery is bad no matter how you look at it. Not all slave owners treated their slaves poorly. And I want you to understand that, because that's part of the history. Everybody thinks that slavery here in America, all the slaves were beaten, they were malnourished, they were chained up, and all this other horrific stuff. And yes, that stuff did happen, so don't get me wrong, it did happen. But not all slaves were treated that way, and that's the case here for David Baum. He was here simply as a hired, or not hired hand, but you could say a hired hand today, but of course not paid. And after earning his freedom, he had enough respect for how the family treated him while he was in slavery and in bondage that he stayed here to continue to help them and work here on the island to make this place successful and establish the community of Nags Head. And so he's going to be buried here with the family. And that's the echoes of freedom that we see. We're hearing the echo that a former slave had enough respect for his slave owners to stay with them and continue to work of his own free will. And the slave owners had enough respect for their former slave to bury him here with the family on the family gravesite. So a few closing remarks. I've got to get over to the Wright Brothers Memorial to get some filming done to stay on schedule. So standing here in the quiet with the ocean just beyond the dunes, and I can just kind of hear the ocean. I can hear the waves. We're not that far. We're about 2 miles off of the beach. So standing here in the quiet with the ocean just beyond the dunes, you realize something. The story of the Outer Banks isn't just shipwrecks, lighthouses, and first flights. It's families, it's survival, it's generations who built lives in a place where nature consistently tested them. Cemeteries like the Norrisbaum Cemetery are sacred historical spaces because they remind us that history isn't just about what happened, it's about who lived. So, all right, historians, next time you pass a small hidden cemetery like this, remember, you're standing in the middle of a community story, and that's the purpose of Echoes of Freedom, to tell the stories that you may not know about. And those stories are just as important as those of the famous landmarks. I'm Smith McNeill. We're in Nags Head, North Carolina, Norrisbaum Cemetery. The past has so many stories to tell, and we're just getting started. If you're ready to uncover them with us, like, subscribe, and join the mission. You can follow along on all our socials via the link below. Thank you for tuning in this week, and as always, we will see you on the next adventure.